The grav lift set us down still in our barn clothes, mine in chore boots crusted with last night's mud, Ruth's in the green canvas jacket she wears to do the chickens. Duke hadn't lifted his head off my boot the whole ride down. That should have told them something. It told me everything I needed. We were standing in the middle of a stone courtyard the size of 2 hay barns, ringed by columns the colour of old bone, under a sky the wrong shade of orange. Soldiers in plated grey stood at the edges, maybe 40 of them, rifles slung, watching us the way you'd watch something that had wandered out of a ditch. At the head of them stood a tall one in dark red, narrow-faced, with a voice like a door dragging on stone. Specimens of the Earth Domestic Unit, he said, to nobody in particular, like he was reading off a manifest. And companion creature. He looked at Duke the way you'd look at a sack of feed somebody'd left in the wrong stall. Inert. Duke wasn't inert. Duke was lying down because it was 6 in the morning, and that's when Duke lies down, every morning of his life, while I fill his bowl. So I filled his bowl. I'd carried the scoop up with me, habit, not plan, and the dry kibble rattled into the steel dish loud enough that half the soldiers actually flinched. You will explain your actions, the red one said. Feeding the dog, I said. Same as every morning. He said his name was Provost Marshal Ethan Core, and he said it like I was supposed to know what that meant. I told him I was Walt Brennan, and that was my wife Ruth, and that was Duke, and I went back to scratching behind Duke's ear in the spot that makes his back leg twitch, because that's the next thing I do every morning, and routines don't stop just because the sky's the wrong colour. Core watched us a long moment. Then he turned to his soldiers and said something in their own tongue that made several of them laugh, a wet, clicking sound, and one of them stepped forward and said, in our language, slow and careful like he was proud of having learned it, "Why does the creature not attack?" "Because there's nothing here worth attacking," Ruth said, not looking up from where she was kneeling, working a burr out of Duke's shoulder fur with a thumbnail. He's seen worse mornings than this one. That got the wet click laugh again, louder. By the time the sun had cleared the columns, word had gotten around the garrison, and the courtyard had filled in. Officers in different coloured plating came to look, some bringing aides who wrote things down on flat black tablets. As I'd learned they called themselves the soldiers, and the dark red plating marked rank, and Core was 3 full grades up from anybody else present. None of that meant anything to me at the time. What I noticed was that nobody touched us, and nobody touched Duke, and the longer that held, the more it seemed to bother them. Core ordered the bowl taken away. A young soldier reached for it, and Duke, without standing, without so much as opening both eyes, set one enormous paw on the rim. Not fast. Not a snap. Just wait, settling there the way a dropped anchor settles. The soldier pulled, found 190 pounds of dog wasn't interested in letting go of breakfast, and looked back at Core for instructions nobody had thought to prepare. Leave it, Core said, like it had been his idea all along. They brought out their own beast at mid-morning. I heard it before I saw it, a low grinding bark, more like gears than a throat, and then it came through the column gate on a chain held by 2 handlers, low and broad and the dull grey-green of a snapping turtle, with a head built for crushing rather than biting. A vrask, they called it. Garrison guard stock. It had 4 eyes and all 4 of them were locked on Duke before it cleared the gate. The handlers walked it close. Duke opened his eyes the rest of the way, looked at it without lifting his head off his paws, and did absolutely nothing else. The vrask stopped 8 feet out. Just stopped, feet planted, head low, that grinding bark cutting off mid-breath like somebody had pulled a plug. It stood there a long moment, and then, slow and deliberate, it sat down. Not cowering. Not submissive in any way I recognized in our own animals. It sat the way a soldier sits when an officer he respects walks into the room. The handlers tugged the chain and the vrask didn't move. They tugged harder. It still didn't move. Core's face did something complicated. "Remove it," he said, and the handlers dragged the vrask backward through the gate, and it went without protest but kept its head turned toward Duke the entire way, like it didn't want to lose track of him. That was the first time I saw the aide with the tablet stop writing notes about us and start writing notes about the dog. They tried other things through the afternoon, and I want to be fair to them. None of it was cruel, not exactly. It read more like testing, the way you'd poke a machine to see what made it run. A soldier clapped his hands hard behind Ruth's back. She didn't flinch, because 40 years married to a man who drops things in the milking parlour will cure you of flinching. Another one stood very close to me and spoke loud and fast and I waited him out the way I wait out a salesman, and eventually he ran out of words and stepped back. They moved Duke's water bowl 6 inches and I moved it back 6 inches and nobody said anything about it after that. Around mid-afternoon, Core himself crouched down. First time he'd lowered himself to our level all day, and looked at Duke close, the way you'd look at an engine you didn't trust the numbers on. He could be made to react, Core said. There are methods. There are, I agreed. I've seen men try them on dogs back home. Doesn't usually go the way they think. And if I ordered it? Then you'd find out, I said, and didn't say anything else, because there wasn't anything else that needed saying, and Ruth's hand found mine without either of us looking down. He didn't order it. I think that surprised him more than it surprised us. What he did instead, starting around the hour the orange light started going long and gold across the stones, was send for a recorder, a proper one, a boxy unit on a tripod, not the handheld tablets, and have it set up 6 feet from where I was sitting cross-legged, brushing the burrs the day had put back into Duke's coat. He had it record the whole thing. Filled the bowl, set it down, dog ate. Sat down beside him. Dog leaned the full unhurried weight of himself sideways into my shoulder. Check his paws for the gravel cuts the courtyard stone might have left. Found none. Said good boy quiet enough that it was really only for him. Brushed him out, slow, the same 8 strokes from neck to shoulder I've used my whole life because that's the order Duke likes it in. An aide, a smaller Arwen, grey plating, the kind that gets sent to do the actual thinking while the coloured ranks talk, started timing it on a hand unit. Then started writing the order down. Feed first. Confirm condition. Position beside. Verbal confirmation. Low volume. Grooming in fixed sequence. You did this in the same order, the aide said. Not quite a question. Every motion. The same order as the morning before. Same order I've done it 12,000 mornings running, I said. Give or take the ones I was laid up sick. Why? Because he expects it. Animal that knows what's coming next doesn't have a reason to be afraid of anything. Neither do I, come to that. The aide wrote that down too, word for word as near as I could tell, and then carried the tablet to Core, and the two of them stood off by the columns talking low for a good while, with that grinding bark of a vrask still echoing distantly from wherever they'd taken it, subdued now, almost patient. Core came back alone. The courtyard had mostly cleared by then. The show, whatever it had been meant to be, hadn't given anybody what they came for, and soldiers drift off a dull post the same in every army I've ever heard of, ours or otherwise. The behavior has been logged, he said. Fixed sequence. No variation under provocation. The creature's calm is, he searched for the word, and didn't quite find one he liked, structural. It does not perform calm. It simply does not require otherwise. He's a good dog, I said. That's the whole of it. We have given it a designation, Core said, and there was something almost embarrassed in the way he said it, an officer reporting a decision made above his pay grade and beneath his dignity. The steady hand protocol. Feed the dependent first. Confirm before speaking. Fix sequence under all conditions. It will be issued to handler units garrison-wide. I didn't laugh, though it was a near thing. 40 years of getting up before light to feed stock, and somewhere out past the edge of the solar system a man in red armor had just turned it into a regulation. You're welcome to it, I said. Works the same on dogs and men, far as I've ever found. They returned us to the lift an hour before full dark, no explanation given for the taking or the giving back, the way of these things, I'd come to understand, more often than not. Duke walked up the ramp on his own 4 feet, unhurried, and lay down in the corner with his chin on his paws the second the door sealed, same as he does in the truck bed every evening of his life. Ruth leaned her head against my shoulder and didn't say much, which after a day like that one was its own kind of relief. Last I saw of Caldrith Garrison was through the small round window as we lifted off the courtyard, Core standing alone in the gold evening light, looking down at a tablet, and beside him, sitting at perfect, unbothered attention, the vrask that had refused to so much as growl, watching the lift go like it was waiting to see if the dog would come back. Duke never opened his eyes again the rest of the way home. Didn't need to. He already knew how it ended.